My guest today is Pabi Moloi, a well-known and well-loved television host, radio broadcaster, media creator, mother, sister, and daughter. I think those are important things as part of that list.
As part of that list, 100%.
I've seen that you've described yourself as a light worker. What does that mean?
To me, hello. It means that most of what informs what I want to bring to the world is light, is consciousness, is positive rather than negative, is spiritually elevating myself. I'm not necessarily a gossip in my workspaces. I don't want to be controversial. I want to bring light. So there's that. I know that there are layers and layers of spiritual meaning around them. But I've heard many times that even if I'm not doing a specific topic about this kind of healing or that kind of healing, my aura, my energy, what I come across as, what my voice that I've been gifted is quite a healing, light working thing. And I take that very seriously. I take that very, very seriously. And I enjoy that space because the feedback I get also affirms and confirms that, people tend to bond in some way or find a connective point with me. And it doesn't even matter what I'm talking about sometimes. So it's been a beautiful time in many spaces in my career where I can have the two align because I love those conversations about, childhood trauma and overcoming that and walking into your light, finding your power, finding your voice. I love all of that. But overall, I just think as a human being, I never want to be the reason somebody feels or is destroyed or broken, or I don't want that.
What are the seeds of that? Because when you say that, thinking about, so my approach to writing, particularly because I blogged for a long time,
Right.
I wrote in a particular, in particular spaces, in digital spaces, and I have a website, and I took the approach of, if I don't have anything positive to write about, something, whatever it is, whether it was tech, music, etc., then I'd rather just not write about it.
Yeah.
And I had the liberty of, it's my spaces.
Yeah.
Like it's my platforms that I've created. So I had the liberty of being able to make that, make those decisions. But for you, where's the seed? What's the seed of that? Like to get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm very deliberate about how I engage with the world and how I engage with information and sharing information on platforms.
Because I know how powerful these platforms are, and I know how powerful I am. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way at all, but I have a sense of, sure, if I say this, sharp tongue, lasting damage, whatever it is, that's the one part of it. Another part of it is from experiencing what other people's words can do. So I know what it feels like to be bullied, to be gossiped about, to, being swore at right in the face, to have rumors made up about me. I know what that feels like. And I don't want to make anyone else feel that way. I have no desire to. I just don't want to. And I'm Capricorn, so I get immediate karma. If I say something bad to you, bet your bottom dollar I'm going to trip over something as I walk out. I don't want to bring that into the world. There's enough of that. Not for me.
The spaces that you're in, so media, entertainment, etc. You come from you were raised by a mother who was well established and respected within those spaces. At what point did you kind of go, okay, I'm going into the family business, in essence?
So I did my first commercial when I was 3 years old. So it was never a conscious decision.
Okay.
I just knew, yeah, this is normal. We go for auditions. We have agents. Like, this is what we do. And I loved it.
Okay.
So maybe that was what gave everybody the green light to say, okay, let her do it. Because I loved it. Nobody pushed me in my family. In fact, a lot of my family members who are in the arts said, no, use your brain, go study something. Just, not another generation of this, because they obviously have lived it and they know what it's like, and it's not easy. But I was the kid who always stood up in our Catholic school church and wanted to do the reading. I wanted to lead the choir. I wanted to be in the school play. It was me. It was innate. So I think perhaps as a conscious decision, when I came out of children's television and I moved into radio, I think that was more of my own awakening to, okay, I see how I can create a path for myself and what that might feel like for me, and how that would work with other goals and ambitions that I had. So perhaps at that point, professionally, it kind of kicked in. But as a human being, I was always the entertainer, always.
And it kind of, I guess, it kind of makes sense in terms of being a bit more deliberate once you were getting into radio. Because in high school, like you're saying, you're manifesting the different one and kind of experimenting with the different one. And the first time we met, I still remember the first time we met, and kind of you writing poetry. Because I ran a poetry. This is when I felt really, really old, because I ran a poetry workshop for you. I think you were in matric.
Yeah.
And I still have all of those poems.
Really?
Somewhere in a box. But I remember them being very intense. Yours in particular.
Oh my gosh, you remember?
I don't remember the words, but I remember like yours being very intense. And ironically, the two people, if there's anybody else in there, I'm really sorry. But the two people I remember out of that experience was yourself and Ntabi, who's a rapper, etc.
Of course.
And to come full circle with Ntabi, maybe 10 years later, for British Council, there was a British Council program that they did for high schools on basically writing. So we were groups of mentors, and each group had a storyteller, a poet, and a rapper.
Gotcha.
And Ntabi was
your third.
Was the rapper in my group. So after having run that workshop, then later running workshops with her, that was like my full circle moment. But I remember for some reason, the both of you, and therefore I've kind of watched your trajectories. But I remember your poetry being steeped in teenage angst.
Oh, I had plenty of that.
And trying to navigate the world.
Yeah. I had plenty of teenage angst. Oh my gosh. My favorite TV shows were Party of Five and Dawson's Creek, which are the most depressing programs aimed at teenagers ever. But I had a lot of that. I had a lot of needing to figure out who I am. What am I about? What do I like? Where do I fit in? How does this all work? I think I started doing shadow work before I even got into thinking about anything else therapeutically, because I really wanted to figure myself out. I wanted to figure out what I was about, and where I fit and how I felt, which might be normal, right? As a teenager, how you feel in your skin. You know,
I think
how,
it's normal to a certain extent, but considering how you like you grew up in an industry that is often about illusion
yes,
and often about, and I mean, you were acting, you were singing, like you're doing everything within that space. So I can imagine that finding yourself or finding an element of yourself would be that much harder.
I've never really thought of it that way up until very recently, in the last maybe 2 years, where I've realized that I've always been a representative of a brand, whether it's a television show or station or a radio station. I've always been a representative, which then is I'm a mouthpiece for whatever their agenda is or what they want to sell. And so even though I had that so eagerly as a teen, I think in the wash, you just kind of go where you go. And over the last 2 years, life begins at 40. And I just kind of went, hang on, but where's my voice? Who am I? How? And so that journey has kind of begun again, which is very interesting.
Well, I'm thinking about something that you mentioned starting the podcast with Khaban, the
Yes.
brother and the sister, where you talked about in the early days trying to switch off your presenter voice.
I think he said that. I still don't believe that I have a presenter voice.
Well, maybe not switch off, but approach it just as a conversation, as opposed to you are presenting something.
Yeah.
You're a broadcaster.
I am. And so it always felt a little bit dangerous for me to assert my own opinions. Or I'll give you an example. One of the radio stations I worked at is renowned for their outreach and giving programs. And so I obviously was a part of one of them. And this woman's story touched me so much, may have been a kid, that I was emotional. So I cried, an ugly cry, but it's on radio, so that's fine. But I couldn't find the way to formulate my words to describe what I felt. I was overwhelmed with emotion. And my manager at the time, and I don't hold this against him, but this is just the nature of what I've experienced, said everything was fine. We got the message across, but you need to be less emotional. You need to be less emotional. Or you were too emotional, something to that effect. And I went, oh, okay. So in this space, no matter what, you've got to get all of the script out. And so then that becomes part of what you run with in the back of your mind, that no matter what. And so I think I was able to achieve more of a puncturing through of that facade very recently, even on air, because as all of these children have been abducted and taken away, and the horrific stories that we found, I found myself in a position where I had to report on that as a news. I'm not going to say a journalist. I'm going to say adjacent to journalist, and I had that moment again where I was just overtaken by emotion. So twice in my career, and this time I let it happen. I allowed it. I didn't switch the mic off. I didn't back off. I allowed it. I gave it the space, the time. And it was so much more obviously authentic, but connecting with my audience. It was a beautiful moment. So yes, when Khabane says that, or I say that, it's about getting out of that, the mode of being the front of something, and bring myself to the fore.
When I speak with, particularly within the corporate space, so there's this whole thing about people leaving themselves at the door when they walk into work. And you're talking about it now, and it never occurred to me that even within, the media space, particularly radio, where it feels like a very direct connection with the listener, people are still doing that. Like, as you're describing that, like, I'm thinking, yeah, actually, that's often what happens. Although there's this kind of direct connection, because I find with radio in particular, somebody is letting you into their house, and I have friends who have been in radio broadcasting for years, and when you see their listeners interact with them, they feel like they know them.
Yes.
Like there's something behind that relationship that goes a bit further than, if I see you presenting a TV show.
Yes.
But as you're speaking, it just occurs to me that even with that, it's still not a negative way, but it's still kind of packaged and framed a particular way. Which is just weird. Like, 'cause I've never thought about that. I talk to people in other spaces and I go, don't leave yourself at home. Don't leave parts of yourself when you cross the threshold into work, because it's those parts of yourselves that will actually enhance and enrich your experience at work for the business itself.
Yeah. Well, for the business.
Yeah.
Or for yourself.
Well, for yourself and for the business.
Because there are two elements here.
There are two elements, but
Yeah.
I believe that what's often missing is that a marketing person who walks into the office and leaves part of themselves at the door, and does stuff with the company or brand that they work with, that when they're on the other side, when it's a brand or a product that they interact with, they have certain complaints. And then they'll go and do the exact same thing in work, because in work, they've left that part of themselves at home. So when they're sitting with their managers, when they're sitting with their team, they're not thinking, when a brand does X, Y, Z, it pisses me off, or it's bad service.
Yeah.
And then you walk into work and then you put in the same processes that for somebody else will sit and go, okay, that's pissing me off. It doesn't feel like it's taking me into consideration.
Yeah. And then, the Google search says it's you who's the marketing manager and you were my next door neighbor. And I'm like, how are you like this? So there are two elements to it. In my very immediate analysis, how safe do you feel in that space?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just in the building. That's also in your listenership space, that demographic. How safe do you feel to be all of the things that you are? And then maybe there are three. Then who deserves your vulnerability and everything that you are? Is that the space? And then, of course, there's the business objectives that you always have to look out for. So it's playing the game of making sure that I feel authentic, because I don't want to get on anywhere and have to put on a show, or especially not on radio. But at the same time, I know what's required of me. I know what contracts I've signed. And at the same time, I don't believe that I need to bring my full self. I just sometimes, but podcasting makes you go a little layer deeper.
Yeah, I mean,
I've found.
well, it's because I think it's because of which is the positive and the negative. One, there's, depending on the podcast like this, there's no real time restriction.
Yeah.
So with that, it allows one to just speak and navigate their way through, navigate the way through thoughts and emotions and all of that. I guess also it's like you say, I mean, it's with the radio, you're not, or with any kind of public platform, you're not going to show up completely. Like, hopefully you are guarding elements of yourself. I remember when I started on Twitter, and I mean, I started early days and I was very, very active. It actually became a conversation within the household because I was spending time on there. And those are the days before the app when you had to go into a browser.
Right.
But I remember at some stage, people used to come to me and say, how do you do it with so much of your life on Twitter? 5% or 10% of my life. Because I've always been very deliberate about it.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same. Because I don't want what we're saying to come across as I've been inauthentic. I'm very much myself. But I also know how to be and in what space, how to be where.
Yeah.
You don't talk to your grandmother the same way you're going to talk to your boys at the pub. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just those tiny refinements that I find. And it keeps me feeling safe, but it also keeps me feeling professional. I feel, and I like to feel professional. It's a quality that I enjoy. And it reminds me that this is work. So when the lines get blurred, work becomes who you are. I don't like that. I am who I am. I've got this whole other life. And then I bring elements of that to feed into what I'm interested in, what we speak about, what our topics are. It's not necessarily the other way around. Like I come home and they go, oh, thou SAFTA-winning presenter, mummy. No, it's not like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Would you say that's why you haven't fully delved into the other parts of your talents and your capabilities? Singing, acting. Because when you describe it, I mean, all of those are work when you're pursuing them, but it feels like you've kind of gone for the side that is very clear in terms of work.
Yeah.
And there's not I've talked to actors, like I talked to Clint Brink recently.
He's so talented. Oh,
he's amazing.
Yeah.
But just talking to him about how he navigates like character versus himself, because he's gone through that journey of kind of finding himself and finding his direction and finding what's important to him while inhabiting these other characters and these other personalities. And when you're describing the professional side, and I know, I mean, you've acted before, you've been in films, you've been in theater, and you can sing.
Are you asking for confirmation?
Well, you've also, I mean, you've done, let's say you've done all that side, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile, the part that you've followed and you've embraced, and you talked about kind of going into radio as being this is kind of my lane in terms of building a career.
Sure.
I get the sense very much that it was like, okay, this is the side that's professional. This side will make things very blurry.
No, It was about the money, Kojo.
Okay.
It was all about the Benjamins. I have two stories. So when I got into radio, I won a competition similar to Idols. So I stood in a long, long line for the whole day, spoke into a microphone eventually when it was my turn. And there were two options once you've done that. You could either thank you very much and goodbye, or you go into the caravan where the proper mixing desk and, you know, you can do your proper link into a microphone. So I won that competition. It was in 3 cities in our country, and I won that competition along with another fantastically talented guy, Julio Garcia. And so I was 19 and I was studying music. That's where radio found me. I was studying music. So that was always the plan. And then I think in my 3rd year of radio, I was invited by the holding company to come and guest star on one of their soapies. And I think I got there at 9:00. And we sat in the green room and walked around, sat back down, had something to eat. And I was like, when are we going to shoot? And I left because that was my whole day. And I don't know when they shot. It could have been 4, it could have been midnight. I don't know. But in my mind, I was like calculating. So in this time, I could have done 2 voiceovers, maybe recorded a TV show, done something else, and had a full day of work. But here I am sitting and waiting. And I know our industry is a lot of waiting, but that part of the industry in that moment, 22 years old, it's like, this isn't how I'm going to build and develop what I want to build and develop. And then the music comes and goes. I think the music maybe is more to your point, that I'd have to say so much more. I'd have to be more vulnerable, say things, feel things. And it's not that I haven't done it. So I've recorded stacks of music. I just haven't put it out.
When are we getting the music?
I don't know. It'll happen.
What was the thinking behind the podcast with your brother?
And
sorry, I will say, I mean, it's interesting when you when you're talking about you going into the space and the kind of family going, not another artist. Here your brother comes and it feels like he embraces all of them.
Yeah. My brother's a comedian. My brother's a visual artist. He's a phenomenal actor. He is all of them, as you say. He's great. He pulled me into this project because I'd recorded demos for podcasts. So I've got like 3 5-part series of random other things that I've done. It didn't quite work out. It had the audio not work. So all the visuals there, but it's unusable. So he'd watched me and I always brought him along to do things with me. So, you know, learn how to do the different roles that are needed. And so when this opportunity came along, it came for him. It was his opportunity. And I always joke with him that he could have gone and chosen any one of his friends or some baddie and they could just talk Gen Z things. But he came to me and he said, let's do this. We had a security guard at our complex who couldn't believe that we were brother and sister because of our age gap. We're 17 years apart. And so I probably look more like the mom, you know? And he couldn't believe it. And so every time we'd come home, he'd open the door and be like, hey, Younger sister. Every time. And so that's the name just rings so true to us because we lived that. And then we just wanted to have an exploration of how this generation views things versus this generation. We have the gender difference as well. We have things that we feel very passionately about. And then we're quite playful with each other. Although he did say that I sometimes just look at him like a proud mom. So I had to stop doing that. But it's been a very interesting ride. It's been a very, very interesting time to watch how he works, what his creative process is, what he's good at, how good he is at what he's good at. It's been a beautiful, beautiful time.
But it does feel also that we get to see a bit more of that playfulness from you.
Yeah. No, I have always been very playful. So I came out post children's television, and my first TV show was called Comedy Cabin, produced by the amazing Desmond Dube. And he, with this truck, would go from Kasi to Kasi all over the country looking for like the comedians of the township. And, you know, if everyone has the uncle who can do this or this granny who says these kinds of jokes. So we did that. Then I went into a whole era of very comedic television programs. So I did Play TV with Darren Moore, which was very physical comedy, very kind of caperish and, you know, funny, very playful. It was called Play TV. Then I went into a series of quiz shows that were quite funny and quippy, and so that side's always been there.
Well, I mean, it's always been there to a certain extent. But if you think about the last decade, like you're talking about a particular era. So
yes.
I remember that era.
Okay, you do.
But literally, if you think about the last decade, like you've been.
What have I done in the last decade? I was on.
You've been on radio. You've been.
What is that show
MC.
called? It was called Trending SA. Also, not a particularly cerebral, serious show.
I remember Trending SA, but now I'm thinking.
And we do sketches.
Yeah, but you were talking about. I mean, Trending SA was. I guess Trending SA was interesting because at some stage it did feel, and I know most of the people. Actually, I knew.
But which Trending SA? Ours or 2.0? Because ours was very sketch driven. We were very up to the minute when it came to the news. But then what we translate the news to would be something comedic, would be something satirical.
Yeah. I guess because I didn't watch a lot of it.
I'm very offended.
Excuse. You'll be strong.
I'll be fine.
You'll be strong. And I mean, everybody on that show were friends of mine. Like I knew everybody on that show.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine.
But yeah, so I guess it's also. It's also influenced kind of by my perception because of the spaces that I'm interacting with. Well, the spaces I'm interacting with your work.
Yes.
Because in general, I tend to focus on my relationship with people. Kind of what you do for a living is what you do for a living.
Sure.
And that's also kind of how I approach like my friendships. Like I've had, when I was in magazine and people go, you don't read the magazine. And it's like,
it's all good.
It has nothing to do with our friendship.
Yeah.
So it's because we've gone through periods we haven't seen each other for years. So all I have is
that snapshot.
All I have is the snapshot of kind of what you are, what you seem to be in terms of your work.
Yeah.
And probably that's influencing kind of my perception to a certain extent of
But I
your work and stuff.
have every perception out there, right? So I'd say the perception, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, we live with it. She's too playful to be in news. But you're so serious. I have every kind of perception out there about me, which I cannot control. But I always find it hilarious when people think that I'm a super, super serious person, because I'm very playful.
How do you navigate that? Because yeah, there are those perceptions, and then there's also unfortunately we've created a world where everybody thinks their opinion is valid
Yeah.
on the individual. Just if you happen to have any type of, not even public, because these days you don't even have to be public for everybody to have an opinion in your life. How have you navigated how you navigate it and make sense of it evolved as well?
Say that again. How I've navigated?
So there's navigating it,
yes,
right?
and evolving as a person.
But you've been dealing with for so long.
Right,
I can imagine that how you dealt with it 10 years ago versus how you deal with it today has also kind of
evolved.
changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I illustrate this by talking about a year where I was on the best dressed list and the worst dressed list, both at number 6, written by the same critic.
Yeah.
So he had come to events, or that specific event, and he had put me at number 6 on the worst dressed list and number 6 on the best dressed list, maybe from a previous event.
Yeah.
So none of this matters. What are you talking about, right? Yeah. When I was younger, I think the weight thing was a very big issue. And there's a specific human who made it his kind of, train to deride me in that way. And it's always interesting because the wheel always turns. And then you see people and they're like, I'm just cool. So that was very difficult. But I think why it was difficult was because I also knew a lot of that was manufactured. So I'd been put on medication and I'd ballooned. And so there was a lot of factors around that. And so evolving as a person, now I'm on the other side where people are like, what time is the funeral? Because you're so skinny. And now I look at it and I laugh because I know, first of all, you're not talking about me. You're talking through your insecurity probably. Yeah. Or I feel sad for a person like that's children. Like if you could, how do you talk to your children? What messaging do you give, I feel sorry for your daughters. And then also number 6 on the worst dressed list, number 6 on the best dressed list. You can't please everybody all the time. And now I'm much more okay with it. Because I know it doesn't define me in any way, career-wise or personally. It just doesn't.
I remember being in magazine and my lesson was getting a phone call and being told such an amazing cover. And then hanging up the phone and going to my email and finding an email telling me that's the worst cover that we've ever had. And it's kind of like, well, guess you can't win. So all you can do is just focus on doing what you do.
Yeah. Number 6 on the best dressed list. Number 6 on the worst dressed list. That's it. And I don't want to give it so much levity that I don't address how difficult it may be if you are a young person and you're exposed now, you know, you're doing your TikTok dances or your K-pop demon hunters dances, and online gives bullies that platform. So I'm not taking away from the fact that that's very, very damaging and it's very difficult. And I'm so grateful we didn't have that when we were kids. I'm very grateful for that. But I think that's a different conversation. In my personal development, I've gone from understanding where it comes from, understanding human nature a little bit more, and it not really factoring into many of the decisions I make anymore.
Does that have an impact on how you're raising your child, parenting your child?
I think so. I hope so. I try to do all the things that we've been told to do. So don't give physical compliments. "Ooh, you're so handsome, my little boy," right? Which feels very natural to do, but rather go, you know, "You did so well with your hair today. Thank you for helping me bath you," or whatever it is that he's done. His achievement. I can see you've worked so hard. I can see, sure, that was a tough game, but you really had good character at the end of it, and you all shook hands. I try to do all of those things. Sometimes I want to just go up to the other parents and say something, but it's not the right thing to do, role model wise, you know. And I think everything changes once you become a parent, because you know someone's watching you. So if they are playing a soccer game and the other team are playing dirty, let me see how he handles it. Let me see what happens there. Let me let coach, I must delegate to coach, because I will walk up to that other parent, or, you know, I think it's natural. I'll be tiger mom, but I try very, very hard not to. I also think it might be different with girls than boys. You know, sometimes I wonder how I'd be as a girl mom. I'm very much poised to be a boy mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also within context of this country and the way, what's always not fascinated me, but the conversation I feel that we don't have, and I've had it in a couple of spaces, where in a society where many boys have been raised by single mothers, we also have the real kind of epidemic, which is pandemic, which is violence against women and children. And it feels like there's something there. I mean, I have theories about what it is. I wish I won't delve into, but you know, the fact that there are so many men today who are perpetrators, but they were raised by their mothers. And it's like, okay, what's the disconnect in the way they're being raised by their mothers that they turn out that way? Because also they have this kind of connection to their mothers, but how they go and act with everybody else, like all other women, just feels weird. It feels like there's a disconnect of some way. And I speak having been raised by my father and not being raised by my mother, you know, and it's like, okay, well, I have a certain element of respect and recognition of, you know, in my relationship, in my marriage, my wife is the person who's actually been going out into the world and doing stuff. And I've been the home person, you know, creating a foundation. That's not to say she's not kind of not a mother. And I always tell people,
for sure,
like,
for sure.
I'm, you know, people that ask me stuff in the house and I'm like, dude, I'm allowed to live here.
Yeah.
but at the same time, she's a professional and she does stuff. And
Yeah.
so she goes out into the world and does that. Because I'm more inclined to hang out at home. Like I'm not particularly interested in being out in the world, you know? So coming from that background and having that kind of relationship, and I'm like, I meet somebody who was raised by his mother and he's like, what do you mean your wife is making more money than you?
Sure.
So I don't know if you said a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm wondering where I step in there.
Well, I'm wondering.
Like what's...
I mean, I've talked about this stuff, and I'm just wondering because like you're saying, you're a mother of boys, and you're raising a boy in a society that is heavily skewed towards boys and
Yes.
men.
Yeah. But you know how much of a tomboy I am and I grew up in. So I started doing martial arts when I was 3 or 4 years old. And patriarchal 3 or 4-year-olds around me would scream out, ballets for girls, karate's for boys. And I'd say, well, Christopher does ballet and he's a boy. And I did martial arts. I also did modern dancing. I also climbed trees. I also like to get my nails done, but I don't often wear earrings, whatever it is. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of black and white thinking around these types of topics. And I think it's a lot more muddy than that. There are a lot of specific influences that for those specific type of people who go out and become, you know, that level of abusive. I mean, the question I always ask is, where are the dads? Like, where are they?
Well, I asked the question myself.
Exactly.
I asked the same question. Like,
Because it's always single parent mothers' homes are XYZ. So tell him, where's the other guy who helped to make this baby? You know?
So
let's do the research
I
and
used to
see
get-
how
yeah.
that impacts
I
the
used to
babies.
get asked that question, especially when my son was born, because as you probably know, like I've written about fatherhood, and
Yes.
and it's very much a part of my identity,
And
has,
your relationship with your father was beautiful.
and has been since you know, for time immemorial, but for as long as I've kind of lived. And I remember being asked, what do you say to, after my son was born and I'd started writing on it and talking about it. And I was like, what do you say to all those fathers or all those men who have abandoned their children? And my answer was always, I don't have anything to say because I don't get it. Like I can't process it. It's not something that I watched my father raise his children and I raise my children. And for me, the natural state is you have a responsibility to your children. So even the thought of, oh, I'm just going to go out into the world. I've got a child, I've got a child somewhere out there, but I'm going to go out into the world. My body, my mind cannot process it. So, yeah.
I think that must be more of the conversation, to be honest, because I think as women, we get blamed for everything in society. As mothers, we get blamed for everything in society. So I don't really engage that conversation much because I know what I do. I know how I parent. I know what I'm about. I also want to say, just because parents aren't together doesn't mean both parents won't be in the child's life. So that there are also those factors. And then there are also factors where people are psychologically incapable or quite dangerous to be around the children. And so specific decisions need to be made there. That's why I say it's very muddy.
Yeah.
And I think we look at it with this one size fits all often. And it's not like that. There are lots of things that can happen.
No, that's true.
There are lots of
It's not
things.
binary. I mean, the world is not binary, but we've kind of we try to force things into either or,
Yeah.
with, against.
And that's
black,
one of
white.
those things, going back to talking on radio, that I would never host conversations around this topic because I knew who my audience were. Mostly male, mostly over a certain age, mostly a certain race. And so I knew it would become a mudslinging contest at the end of it. They don't want to hear A, from me, stupid girl, B, because I have nothing to contribute, and the C, because they've already made up their mind.
Yeah.
So they're just going to come, tell me all of their nonsense, and then shut, rather than engage. And it's not nonsense because it's this topic. There's several topics that
I'm with you.
I don't open myself to because there is no point sometimes. I love how you refer to and speak about and have told stories about fatherhood, because you are who needs to be followed. You must have the round table. I'm busy, okay? and many single moms have not gone anywhere. So I don't know why so much scrutiny happens, on the one who stayed.
I mean, and I'm kind of recognizing the flaw in where I started, because also it goes against some of my thoughts about these things, which is you cannot expect the victim to have the solution to something that the perpetrator does.
Yeah.
It's like racism is not a black problem. It's a white problem, for example, in that instance, and therefore they need to figure it out amongst themselves as to why we have this perception and how do we change this particular perception.
I mean, I don't know if you watched the Netflix show Adolescence.
I haven't seen it yet.
We did a full deep dive on a brother and a sister podcast about it. And essentially, thematically, it's around how societally we've kind of made it that masculinity looks a certain way, is a certain thing, and you're kind of having a dick swinging competition, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not actually about trying to impress a woman or look out, it's about what your friends see you do. That's who you're actually playing to. That's the audience you're playing to as men. Not you, Kojo, never you. You're perfect. But
close, but not quite there yet.
But this youngster who's, I think, in grade school, he's young, gets swept up in all of this and the red pill content online, and gets swept up in the idea that if I do something for you, you owe me. And a lot of the dark things that dehumanize women. And he does something extreme, and he's only a small kid. So if women have been dehumanized for so long, I don't know why we're surprised we're in this scenario we're in with femicide.
Yeah.
You know, and you're absolutely right. I don't, when they're like GBV conference, will you come speak at a GBV? It depends on what we're talking about. If I'm speaking to women who've experienced things that I've experienced, that makes sense. But solutions, just don't rape. Just don't kill.
Yeah.
How about that? It's a one-step solution. Yeah, I don't ever think that, because I don't know. I've not ever wanted, I don't know. Why do you get
I get
there?
you, yeah.
Why? You know, as guys. Some guys, not all.
Oh, even that phrase, like,
No, they say
So,
not all men,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
always a man. That's what I keep reading.
So the discussion I've had with friends where it's like, when we are focused on arguing about semantics, it's like, look, we have the liberty of being able to argue in semantics. Like, people are dying.
People are dying.
And you're just sitting here talking about, yeah, but I shouldn't be included in that. It's like, if I hear something, I'm included or not included in my mind, depending whether I feel that I am that, whatever it is, positive or negative. So if men are said to be X, if I am X and I'm taking offense, then I'm taking offense because I'm X, one of those.
Okay.
But if I'm Y and you're saying all men are X, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I know for myself, I'm not going to take it to heart because I don't feel I fall within that.
Yes.
That's the first
yes.
step.
Yes.
If I feel I need to contribute to changing other men to Y, that's a different conversation. But if somebody says, I don't know, all dreadlocked men smoke weed, and I don't smoke weed, I'm going to sit and be, yeah, that's offensive. Like, why are you trying to stereotype me? It's like, there's other things in life to worry about.
There's other things in life to worry about. And at the end of the day, if we're sitting here having these, highfalutin conversations, as you say, people are dying, but also, who is feeding the children? Who is making that a reality? But I will say this. It's an interesting line to walk, because raising a boy, having multiple brothers, having multiple cousin brothers, I've never said men are trash, because I wonder what when my little boy hears that, what's he gonna think?
Yeah.
He's not fully formed yet to understand. So we have conversations about events, about consent, about bodily autonomy, about the specifics within the umbrella conversation. But I don't know. Who has the answer?
Yeah, and in raising children, there is no answer. Best that you can. And hope for the best.
Yeah.
My approach.
Yeah.
You've left radio. Feels like a pivot, but I don't think it's a bad pivot. What's it like being out of radio after such a long time?
Well, I don't know what the timeline will be between when people see this conversation and when I actually left radio, but I left in July of 2025. And I wake up feeling so happy, hopeful, and free every single day. And it almost makes me feel bad to say that, but I do. I feel, phew, there's so much I've wanted to do that I can do. And there's so much that I've not wanted to do that now I don't have to do. And I'm in a very fortunate position that I can take that time out for myself to heal from what I've come out of, and then, maybe make some decisions, maybe put some plans together. But what I do realize is, if we don't do our podcast, I feel like I have all this inside me that I want to talk about. So that's a beautiful outlet that we created even before. It's like the steps were governed in some way.
I mean, you lay the foundation and the runway for something that didn't perhaps know was coming.
Yeah. So I don't mind. I don't have I'm really loving my life right now. I'm really enjoying just life.
What are you doing with the extra time?
Whatever I want to, Kojo. Honestly, I train, I read, I have some projects that I've always worked on that I'm still working on. I parent. I'm at home with my mom. Whatever I want to do. I take naps during the day. Don't you love a nap? Because it is a journey. There are a lot of things that I've got to be enthused enough to make decisions about and then lay that foundation work. And right now, I just feel like being a lady of leisure.
Well, it does feel like it's time. Like, I mean, you've
I've
kind
had
of
no leisure.
you've gone through. I mean, you've gone through however many years of work and I mean, I found like radio. I mean, I just did a show a week, but I mean, I have so many friends in this space, and it just feels relentless.
It is
like,
relentless, yeah.
Your entire life is just structured around this thing. Like that's the fixed anchor, and it's never a logical anchor. Like if you're doing drive time, it's like it impacts on your morning, the rest of your day. I was recently talking to a friend of mine who's been doing breakfast, or was doing breakfast, and it's like, it affects from when you go to bed after you've worked, what the rest of your day looks like. It also takes stuff out of you. So I can imagine just the relief of, to a certain extent, free time.
Free time to imagine again, to listen to new music. My head was so full of facts and stats and news and this and that I couldn't slow it down enough to even absorb new music. And now I am, and I'm just having a time very reminiscent, actually, but with better resources and better mental health, of my teen years, where you can just stare at the ceiling for a while and go, yeah, maybe that could work, or this is how I want to feel. And I know myself, I can't sit for too long, so it'll come. But while I'm here and I'm comfortable, I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy it.
And it feels very family oriented, family centered. And it feels like you have the time. I mean, I'm watching parts of your conversation with your mother. And, podcast with your brother. You talk about fetching your son from school. You have a certain, sounds very,
Bring it.
It's like, it feels like you have a certain glow to yourself that comes across in those conversations. I mean, I was watching your conversation with your mother. I wasn't listening to your conversation.
Okay.
So I wasn't listening to the words. I was just kind of looking at the interaction, and there was a certain energy that was coming out of you that felt like, it's like your mother has that energy, but you are reciprocating it.
Yeah.
And having kind of listened to you and seen you when you're working, there's that there, but that aspect didn't feel that aspect.
Yes.
Until I saw, and literally the first time I watched the clip, my sound wasn't on. I had to turn up my phone.
Sure. But you'd already clocked.
So it
that
feels
energy.
Yeah.
I do love family. But I also think you need to go through some things in life before you realize what's best to be rooted in, right? friendship breakups, backstabbings, people immigrating. You know, I've had a lot of that stuff happen. That's shaken my friendship circle. But I still have, I still have, I don't know if I want to call them core friends or how I describe this, but I still have friends. Because I think that's actually just, it's this whole, I don't know, sisterhood. You have sisterhood with your sister. I don't know. That's just what I've experienced. So I have a group of people who, hey, we've got tickets to what, let's go dance, where, and how, right, fine. But then there's this thing that I come from, that knows me from day one, that maybe I've known from day one, and we may fight with each other. But if anybody says anything about any of you, you know, I'm back in my karate suit, into my gi, and I'll defend you. And I love that. I love that very much. I love love, and I love that, the purity of that. I love, no one's gonna buy face, no one's pretending. I love that feeling, which maybe goes back to being in a career where I have to keep it together, you know. But I love my baggy tracksuit pants and sitting watching television with the holes in my socks, and I don't care. No one cares, and it's fine, you know. Yeah.
So what's exciting you and giving you joy?
The fact that the world feels like my canvas. My canvas. The fact that I feel bold, bolder than I've ever felt before, and unapologetic. The fact that on the 31st of September 2001, my mom went to hospital, and then after school on the 1st of October 2001, I met this tiny person who fit between, you know, his head was at my wrist and his little feet were at my elbow. And now he's the 6-foot giant. And I've watched every stage of that. Yeah, I don't know. This person's existence has changed my whole life from when it happened, when I was a matric. So that gives me joy. And watching, you know, his frontal cortex hasn't attached yet. But look how wise you are, look how smart you are, look how great you are. And then, of course, the little one they're full of surprises. And that gives me a lot of joy, a lot of joy. I feel a lot like myself, which is interesting because wasn't that what I was always searching for, you know? I feel a lot like myself. If I felt this way at 20, danger, you know? I feel a lot like myself.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kojo.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. Please leave a review and subscribe. Check out the show notes for links to the guest, the podcast, and myself. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Thank you for listening to this conversation. Please leave a review and subscribe. Check out the show notes for links to the guest, the podcast, and myself. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.